On live.
We're going live.
It says we're live.
We're live.
Are
Ladies
we
and gentlemen,
live?
welcome. Artie is here to answer, and I'm here to look good. But there is nobody watching us right now. So, Artie, how was your day? And congratulations on your new job. Are you happy with it?
Well, I don't have anything to really complain about yet. I mean, I spent most of the day today in orientations of various kinds, which were, you know, here's the safety. Here's the safety thing. Here's the don't take bribes thing. Here's the active shooter drill thing. So, well, I would be curious to see if like locations in say Europe are required to take active shooter training. I would be curious. Maybe I have no idea.
Did you just say active shooter training?
Oh yeah. There's like a whole seminar you got to go through, a quiz at the end, and all that stuff.
That's so alien to me, man. That's not even fun.
Well, Canada, yeah. So I'll set it for you. Run away. That's the. I mean, they give practical advice.
Hey,
but
Kenneth, Steven, sup, man? We're gonna be talking about the maps. Sorry, I cut you off.
Not technical shooter and active shooter training. So thank goodness, I've had enough of that for one day. Thank you.
So, but that the reality of just what you just said. It's a Fellini movie, what you just said. And we're taking, what was it again? Active
shooter training.
Jesus.
Yeah, part of your mandatory orientation nowadays.
Man, anyways. Hey, Purple Norseman.
We didn't get what to do in a case of a bomb threat, though. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's tomorrow. But we didn't know. We didn't cover what to do in case the building is bombed or something like that.
I forget which church shooting it was, but the guy with the shotgun who blew away one guy at the church.
That we have to try to figure out which church shooting it was is in fact the problem.
That's horrible. Anyways,
which is a problem we are not going to solve on tonight's show.
No. So Rick Barber passed away.
Indeed, he did.
I don't know if we hey, guten Abend. I don't know if we spoke about it. We did?
I thought we mentioned it. Yeah, I thought we mentioned it, but we really didn't talk about it in depth or anything like that.
Because I had the opportunity to, right now, the COVID here situation is code yellow. We can travel and we can be 6 feet apart and 4 people outside. Anyways. So I had the opportunity to go to Carol Parazzi's house. Mm-hmm. And he gifted me with like way over 100 games, like I was telling you before. And
that's a lot of games, man.
That's just a little amount of what he gave me.
I'm just saying that's a lot of games.
He's got a lot of games, man. He just buys games, and So we're talking about, and we spoke about Rick Barber, and he said he was in touch with Rick Barber all the time.
Mm-hmm. I guess doesn't surprise me particularly.
I'm sorry.
That doesn't surprise me particularly. Carl.
No, right, because I got coworkers.
Right,
yeah.
Rick is a big shot artist,
and so he was wondering why Rick wasn't returning his call.
Well, that's why. So
that's why.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of maps to give Carl, this and this and that. Oh man.
So I think it sounds like the last thing that Rick turned in was the maps for Rebel Fury, which is the Mark Herman multi-pack, whatever it is. I don't know, forget how many battles are in there, but it's a bunch for GMT, which is in the pipeline. And I think I've seen Mark post that he's still playtesting it, like in the last few days. So
wow, yeah. Personally, I lost in my eyes a great artist, a great map artist. I love his maps. Some people think it's too much.
Well, I mean, art is art, right? I mean, it's subjective. To some degree, it's how good it is going to be subjective. There is, on the other hand, a more objective measure by which you can judge a wargame map, at least, and that's how easy or hard it is to read. And that is, in some cases, an area in which Rick's maps are, to me at least, were sometimes hard to read. Specifically some of the one for the P Ridge game, bloody I forget the P Ridge Blind Swords game. I had some problems with reading some of the hex information on that map.
Stonewall,
This is it's from Revolution Games. It's I think it's Thunder in the Ozarks. That's
okay. There you go. Yeah,
yeah, and it was a good game. We liked the game. It's just some and not every hex is a problem, but some hexes were a problem. Certainly, Rick's style was probably somewhat polarizing in that he had a really especially in recent years. He had a really distinct and recognizable style. After I mentioned that, I don't think anybody's really doing maps that look like Rick Barber maps. And then a couple people pointed out to me some examples of maps where I think the artist, whoever it was trying to look like a Rick Barber map, and I think not quite successfully. But you know, there have been attempts to copy that, or a heavily Rick Barber influenced style. I don't want to say copy, but to develop similar styles that I think didn't really. Also, let me butt in here. The fact is that Rick developed that wasn't, you know, if you look at a Rick Barber map from like 1985 or something like that, it's not going to look like the map for A Most Fearful Sacrifice.
No, and Rick
I just developed that style over the course of decades, right? So that wasn't something that just poof, here it is, you know, the genius at work, and it looks like this.
Now the thing is with Rick Barber is I associate him with the American Civil War.
I think that's probably true of a lot of people, but he did a lot of stuff for a lot of Napoleonic stuff. He did a lot of Labatt maps that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, if we had known more than 2 minutes before the start of the show,
Joel Toppin couldn't make it. We were supposed to have Joel Toppin on, but he's on vacation.
That rat is on vacation. Imagine that.
We thought about Rick Barber.
Yeah, so looking at his credits here, just looking him up on Board Game Geek. Octung Spitfire is actually one of his, and that's actually a really neat looking map, by the way. It's obviously an air game, right? So it's the details of the terrain are not terribly important. And therefore, who cares? It just really has to look pretty and have a hex grid that you can see.
That's right.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of American Civil War games on here. Oh, here's Death Ride Kursk. Rick Barber had a hand in that.
In Death Ride Kursk.
That doesn't look like a Rick Barber map to me. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. That's the Grognard Simulations giant, like platoon level game in 10 volumes or whatever it is.
What's it called?
Death Ride Kursk.
Okay, no. What else did Grognard Simulation do? Because Carl just gave me 3 of those games.
Oh, really? Well, they did the Death Ride series. They've done a couple other things. That Normandy is their current effort.
No, all he gave me was Napoleonics. I have the Emperor's War. Does that say anything?
That's not ringing a bell for me.
You know what? Let me get the box just to show you there.
We're talking about OSG, aren't we?
Who, now?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean OSG?
OSG.
You're not talking about MMP's OSG. You're talking about...
No, I'm talking about OSG's OSG. The game in your hand is OSG's The Emperor's War. It's a Kevin Zucker design.
I thought you didn't know about the game. All of a sudden, bang.
No, that's the game we were talking about.
Oh.
That's from OSG, not Grognard Simulations.
Is this a Barber map? No.
No, I don't think so. Says Christopher Moeller, actually. So for those who don't know, Christopher Moeller has done a couple of the Napoleon's Eagles design from Compass, which is like the Napoleonic card, one of the Napoleonic card games. It's supposed to be pretty good, from what I understand. One volume of that is out, and another one is on pre-order. Apparently, he did the map for this Emperor's War, and he's super into Napoleonics. For those who don't know, Chris Moeller is the guy behind the Thursday Night Gamers channel, which does playthrough content of mostly OSG stuff, Napoleonic stuff.
Oh, you're talking about the Grognard of the year. Jim
Warzowski. No.
Oh.
Well, Jim is a big Napoleonics guy.
Yeah.
Christopher Moeller is also the writer and artist of the Iron Empires series of graphic novels. That's a Kevin Zucker design from OSG as well.
Okay.
I like a lot of the stuff I have from OSG, so I have no reason to complain about any of that.
Weren't you supposed to get an interview with the guys who do the OSG? Is that what I'm thinking about?
OCS is what you're talking about.
What am I talking
There's
about?
probably another OCS interview coming in my future, by the way, before sometime in a couple of months.
I'm talking about that huge game that's worth like $500.
Are we talking about the huge now I'm OCS East Front, the Ostfront thing? That's
no,
like
it's another company. It's another company. It's a huge, super detailed maps. It's 4 guys working on it from different parts of the world. Arty, man.
The Second World War from Diffraction Entertainment. Is that what we're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the whole bloody war.
World in Flames?
No, you were supposed to get an unboxing. You're supposed to do an unboxing for them.
Of the fucking... I'm not sure who we're talking about, to be completely honest. Then again, I've got a lot of irons in the fire. So
all right.
It's entirely possible, and a lot going on right now. So it's entirely plausible that I have gone senile and forgotten what the hell you're talking about.
I think TWG or something, or
there's TSWW, but that's back to the Second World War thing, which should eventually cover the entire Second World War.
That's what I'm talking about. TSWW.
Okay. Yeah, I may do another video on that. I've got the Singapore game. It's enormous, and map footprint on that is just crazy big. I think that Quattrobra game that he's talking about is a Rick Barber map, if I'm not mistaken.
What, man?
And actually, they have a new version. Clash of Arms, they meaning Clash of Arms in this case, has a new version of La Bataille. What are they calling it? The big Waterloo game, the big Labatt Waterloo game.
Why you keep saying Labatt? Labatt's a beer.
Labatt is not Labatt the beer, but La Bataille. So this would be La Bataille de Mont Saint Jean, after the the Napoleonic name for the place where they actually fought, which is Mont Saint Jean was closer to the battlefield than what was on the battlefield. Waterloo, the town of Waterloo, was not. I think that's probably going to have a Rick Barber map, but I think that's well along and is expected to be delivered relatively soon. Maybe it even has already. Not really clued into the Labatt scene.
It's funny you keep saying Labatt, eh? Unbelievable.
Labatt. Yeah, well, it's La Bataille. I could say La Bataille if you want.
There you go.
A series that originated with Game Designers Workshop in the 70s, early 70s at that. Yeah, I don't know that it's the same map. I mean, it could be. I just don't know that. I don't do Labatt, so I have not investigated the new package. I know it's large and expensive. And probably it's the same Rick Barber map, but I don't know that for sure.
Now, a guy like Rick Barber, okay? I wonder how much he would charge as opposed to a guy like the other map makers.
There's a crude sketch map.
I know it's a very individualistic though, but this guy does it by hand. I spoke to him. All his calligraphy is by hand for sure. And
you can absolutely tell. The lettering on those maps is absolutely idiosyncratically Rick Barber.
Yeah.
You can't get that with a font. Every A will look exactly the same, and his don't.
He's a cartographer by trade. Is that right?
I haven't the vaguest idea. I mean, I find that very plausible, but I have no idea what he.
I know Sergio Schiavi. Sergio Schiavi in Italy is a cartographer, like a serious heavy one.
Okay.
Yeah. What's this? Boom.
So are those the Eagles of France maps? Because I think those were like I don't know. I'm gonna put it in comics terms where it was like the pencil sketch was done by Rick Barber, and then somebody else came in and finished them on the Eagles of France. That's Austerlitz Rising Eagles and Waterloo Fallen Eagles, and there's a Quattrobra and a Ligny volume as well.
Man.
And I don't know what the next one's going to be, but that's a well-regarded series of Napoleonic brigade level. I think sounds right.
And who's the designer of that?
Not sure off the top of my head. HEXES. I know that.
And I'm going to say something very controversial here.
Walter Wadowski.
Doesn't sound American to me.
That's what BGG says. I do not quote me on that pronunciation. Let me put it that way.
Now, what the hell was I? Oh yeah, Now, if this Napoleonic designer, the guy who designed this Napoleonic Bras, I don't know the guy's name, I'm sorry. You think he would have a different view than some guy like Mark Herman?
I think that's probably true. I'm showing that La Bataille de Quatre Bras was designed by Ed Wimble. I am only qualified to talk about Labatt in an exceptionally general, unspecific way. In that I've never played any of the games. There is a local community of people that like Labatt here in Columbus. I am not part of that community. So, I mean, I know all those guys, but we, you know, when I play with them, that we play other stuff. I don't have the interest in Napoleonics at that particular scale. I think that's two levels lower than I want to go. But yeah, I mean, I would think somebody designing a game like La Bataille de Quatre Bras, which is a relatively recent. No, that's not true. This says 1991. There may be multiple editions of this. I have no idea. But it you know, it's relatively recent. It's, you know, it's younger than SPI. And I would think somebody designing a game like that is coming from a very different place than Mark Herman. But yeah. I don't know that. I mean, Mark Herman is Mark Herman, right?
Yeah, no, of course.
He is, by definition, coming from a different place, the Mark Herman place, than everybody else.
I just said Mark Herman just like that.
Well, you could say, I mean, you could say the same thing about any active modern designer. I think Volko is, you know, very coming from. Okay, let's take a better and more contemporary example. Mark Simonich. Okay,
right.
Mark releases. You know, he's a current active modern designer. He's releasing games that are well liked, and I like everything that Mark's done anytime recently. That's for sure. And yet they are very different games than something that Mark Herman might release, or Volko might release, or
let me stop you just here a second.
Or Brian Train, for that matter.
And Jan Heineman, if you're listening there, listen, Jan. Now, if it's a combat simulation game, if it's a simulation, why is it different, Artie?
Well, so the question, I don't think that's the right question. I think the right question is, what is it simulating?
Ooh,
and the like what we might call the traditional model of tabletop war games simulates troops moving, troops fighting, a certain types of the friction that might be experienced in those types of situations. And at the same time, it doesn't simulate other types of things. Like, that's why the Vietnam 1965 to 75 was such a revelatory game at the time, because it tries to simulate things like guerrilla warfare and huge fog of war and political considerations and like allied commitment levels and things like that your typical board war game prior to that did not have much success simulating, right? So the question isn't, is it a simulation or not? And I'm certainly guilty of using, it's a better simulation type of language than anybody, but what is it trying to simulate, right? So something like Nevsky is trying to simulate that sort of feudal ebb and flow based on the feudal levy. That, you know, you call the levies up so you can go march to war, and then you have to send them back to their fields, or there's bad news because everybody's going to starve because the crops were all rotted in the fields. So it is a simulation, but it's not simulating the detailed tactical movement of troops that one might associate with a hex encounter game.
Yeah, but exactly, I'm sticking to just hex encounters because I think the Nevsky is a coin game. No, it's not a coin game. It's it's Volko's new
levy and campaign.
The guy's a genius. Anything pulls out of his head. Christ.
Well, anything that he could tell us. There's a lot of classified stuff there, from what I hear.
Anyways, yeah, I got stories. But anyways, what was I talking about? Help me here.
When?
Oh, no. Hex encounter.
Mm-hmm.
History, accurate history simulation. Why? And when you said, what is it that they're simulating? Very good question. But if we're talking about a certain battle, what do you mean, what is it that we're simulating? We're simulating the Battle of Waterloo, and it's historically accurate. So Mark Herman's going to draw the same type of game as Armand Bombardier in France, it's the same game. It's a simulation. It's what it is. It's
so. First of all, and I'll turn this back to the topic of maps, because we can talk about the different ways to approach maps. But we have a local fella around here who is similarly reductive in his discussions of whatever. It's like, you know, say Unconditional Surrender comes out, he's like, oh, it's a new version of Third Reich. Or Lock and Load Tactical comes out, oh, it's a new version of Panzer Blitz. Or Barlev comes out, and oh, it's a new version of October. It's the same game as October War. And it's like, I feel that's unhelpfully reductive. But in terms of like hex and counter, you know, the hex type map. First of all, there are area maps that mathematically, topologically are identical to hex maps. I would encourage you to take a look at the map for Hearts of Iron 3, for example, the video game Hearts of Iron 3. I don't know about any of the modded maps, and I'm not talking about Hearts of Iron 4. But if you look at that map, it's areas, but almost every area, with some exceptions, almost every area has 6 adjoining areas, right? It's mathematically very close to a hex map, right? So the only thing that a hex map, as a counter example, take a look at No Peace Without Spain, which is a point-to-point map, which again could be mathematically identical to a hex map, right?
Who publishes that?
That's from Compass.
Okay.
But I choose that one because there's relatively few points on that map, and therefore relatively few connections between the points. So essentially, what you have topologically is you have locations where counters can be, where game items, whatever the counters are, forces or armies or whatever they are, can be located, and then you have connections between those points, and then you have some kind of movement mechanism that allows you to move a game object, a unit or army or whatever, from one area to another. And then maybe it gets to move again because it's got 2 movement points, and again because it's got 3 movement points. So you have this sort of mathematical grid, right? Regardless of what you're talking about. The difference with a hex map is that the grid is completely regular. You have a hex, which is where a unit can be, and around that hex there are 6 other hexes, and around each of those there are 6 other hexes. And of course, you know, you have things like coastlines and sea hexes and stuff like that. But that's all it is. So, but that's more connections between locations where pieces can exist than one typically sees in a point-to-point map, or sometimes at least an area map. Okay, so what you can end up with is a game with a hex map that feels like it's a better simulation of movement, because every hex is the same size. So you can, and it's also, there's certain design considerations that I think are easier on a hex grid. You can say this army historically could march 20 miles a day. Well, that's what, 4 hexes? Okay, it's 4 hexes, no problem. You got the hexes on there. If you need to simulate that on a point-to-point map, you might have to do the math differently, right? Yeah,
but I mean, I understand what you're trying to say, but my question is actually really simple. They went the Battle of the Bulge. The Americans didn't know. And what was it? Well, 8:15 they opened up, or was it 5:15 in the morning that the Germans opened up? Mm-hmm. Well, that's factual, right?
Sure.
So why would it be different from one designer to another designer? I mean, we're not talking a musical composition here where we're creating. We're not creating anything. It's a fact.
There's more to the game design than just so I mean, if we want just a recitation of the historical facts, we will go watch a Jerry Bruckheimer film, for example, or read a book or whatever. We want, as people play in these games, the ability to affect the outcome in some way, or maybe as an alternate motive, the ability to study the reasons for that outcome. And you can, just like you can buy 3 different books on the Battle of the Bulge and get 3 completely different opinions on why.
I don't want an opinion. I don't want an opinion.
You're getting an opinion, though. The designer has an opinion, and
but it's a simulation. What opinion?
Putting it in the game.
It's a simulation.
But what is he simulating? Right? It's not an attempt. well, almost never is a war game an attempt to create a history engine that runs exactly point by point exactly how things happened historically. There's probably games that were designed with that in mind, but I think that's got to be a pretty small minority.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can have, so like, again, let's take the Battle of the Bulge. Okay, the Germans did not succeed in their stated objectives, right? Why did they not succeed? Well,
supply.
Well, that's part of the reason. Part of the reason was the Allies were able to shift enough forces in there to cut their offensive to a halt.
You see how history is skewed?
Part of it is that the weather turned against them, and their suddenly Allied air power is a factor again. There's a bunch of reasons, right? And somebody that writes a book about it has an opinion on what the most important factor was. And the game designer does too. He is presumably emphasizing in his simulation those elements that he finds the most interesting or illuminating or instructive or whatever. Okay, the designer has something to say about how that game happened. A better example than the Battle of the Bulge is Empire of the Sun. Okay, and Mark talks about this in his designer's notes. Okay, that he doesn't think that the Japanese could have won that Pacific War in an absolute sense. He talks about this in Pacific War as well, for that matter. So the games have to be structured in such a way, because they are, after all, games, to produce a good game, despite the fact that the Japanese are, in Mark's opinion, the Japanese are going to lose and have no realistic shot at objective victory. So how do you measure victory? Well, Empire of the Sun says, well, if the Japanese can work their way to a negotiated peace, then that's a Japanese victory.
Right.
But that's not Japanese run,
No.
invade San Diego, right? That's the Japanese, give back most of China, for example, and probably most of the Dutch. That's debatable as to they make some concessions, and the war's over. And then that looks like a Japanese victory. Pacific War is a little different because it's not really built around that simulation of the whole war. It's built around the operational campaigns. So yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm gonna give you another shot here. Dan needs to participate in Kriegspiel. I only know of the game, but here we go. It's all about human.
That's a lot of that's true. Okay, so I'm going to assume that Hethel's talking about a more or less historical Kriegspiel and not the legendary early 70s Avalon Hill turd, which is not considered a good game, to say the least. Legend has it that it was designed by Tom Shaw in about 10 minutes on the back of an envelope because they needed something to pitch at a convention was an upcoming release. I don't know the truth of that, but that's the story.
I'm going to lower my blind.
And it is not a well-regarded thing. But what I think Hethel's talking about is also not like the von Reichwitz Prussian General Staff Kriegspiel that they ran, because that's actually super sophisticated and has moderators and dice and all kinds of other stuff. What we typically see a lot more often nowadays is what's called a free Kriegspiel, which is basically it's a completely moderator-run game where there will be a moderation team, which might be one person.
Also, that's what he's saying. He's not talking about the Avalon Hill crappy game there.
No. He's talking about what I'm talking about, which Grognard of the Year, Jim Orzowski, runs or helps run. No, he runs them himself too. So this happens at Origins every year. They run a big Kriegspiel, and it's a lot of fun actually. And you totally should do that. It's not rulesy particularly. It's you have some information and you're given a map and you have some pieces that you can move around and you're in, the only information you have is what you can physically see. You being a guy on a horse on a hill somewhere, and then what information the couriers are bringing you, and the couriers in this case are sending you that information from the referee. So you might say, "Oh, we've spotted enemy troop movements over here." And they send your entire brigade after this, supposedly enemy troop movements, and you find out it's a guy on a mule, right? Or you can get caught pants down and get caught and end up in in an ambush too. So it is actually a lot of fun.
That's
and
fantastic.
actually, since we're talking about this, the Armchair Dragoons digital convention is coming up June 18th through the 20th, and they are running Kriegspiels. At least one Kriegspiel in that convention. So I would encourage anybody that hasn't done that to absolutely do that. It is. I mean, it'll teach you a lot about the limitations of Fog of War.
And you know what? That's fantastic. I never even heard of that. And what is it? There's one moderator, a couple of referees. What goes on?
It depends on how many people there are. So at Origins, the way it works is there's like one lead judge, and there'll be like a couple other judges, and then there'll be about 8 or 10 people who will just like run messages to all 20 people or however many people are participating. And it's vaguely Napoleonic, where you have, infantry and cavalry and artillery, and everybody gets vaguely a brigade. The exact scale is much less important. Findle 70 has been in those. He knows that exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, you can get into it's really neat, and I would encourage any war gamer to at least give that a shot at some point.
That would be how I would play war games forever.
And I think the Armchair Dragoons have like forum-based Kriegspiels running all the time too. Don't quote me on any specific schedule, but Jim's not the only one who's super into Kriegspiels, but with them. But Jim is always running this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know. So, that's why he's Grognard of the Year, man.
Yeah. So this totally happens. So you might say, okay, that so-and-so player Bob is like the lead general.
Right.
If you don't you spotted enemy troops, you should be sending a courier to General Bob to tell him, hey, if we think we've spotted enemy troops over here, and then he can start leveraging that. If you just like run after him, you're going to get hosed, and General Bob, you're going to be pissed. Okay, like, what do you mean you had enemy? You had a whole battle over on your side of the field.
and is the respawning allowed? Is that what happens, or you're dead? You're gone.
By that time, if you're dead, you're dead. I mean, it generally won't get. They won't reach the point of entire armies annihilated or anything like that. Because once there's contact, then that battle can tend to take many hours, right? So
but that's so
command
cool.
staff game is something else that they do at Origins, which is a very different event in every detail that nevertheless shows you some of the much more modern ideas about command operations. So, but yeah, Kriegspiel is, I mean, you could, they're not that hard. If you've got good instincts for war games, they're not even hard to run. Free Kriegspiel again. I'm talking about free Kriegspiel. If you can find a translation of the original, like Prussian General Staff Kriegspiel online somewhere, and God bless if you want to go through that thing. But
seriously,
yeah. Well, it's German. It's over-engineered. Sorry, Jan, but I mean, for casual players, for the people for whom it was created, it was not over-engineered because they're supposed to train professional military officers.
Yeah, they don't want to die.
For random gamers looking for entertainment, it's a bit much. But the free Kriegspiel is basically just playing fast and loose with that. So that's true. That happened to me actually. We caught an enemy messenger, in a field somewhere and beat information out of him.
And
so Kanai's a little different than the kind of thing we're talking about, because once you're talking about the Battle of Kanai, right? That says to me, okay, we're now in the operations phase of the campaign is on hold for now, and we are now going to engage in this tactical exercise. And certainly the command and control on that battlefield is interesting, and B, deserves treatment in war games, and I think we've seen it. But they're very different types of things, right? You can, there's not really fog of war there unless there's like a huge wave of reinforcements coming in or something like that, which sometimes happens in ancient battles. But generally, they're kind of set piece battles where you have an army and you have another army, and until one of them goes away. I mean, I'm going to say I think the best modeling of that is probably I'm going to go back to Great Battles of History for like Ancients command and control at the tactical level.
Now, if some guy, whatever, if some person is really involved in the Kriegspiel, does that tactic or does that experience cross over on Hex Encounter?
I think it more crosses over in the other direction, to be honest. But that's just coming from me because I've got a lot more experience with Hex Encounter than I do with Kriegspiels, which I've done a couple times, right? So for me at least, it goes in the other direction. But I would think so. I mean, yeah, assuming the Kriegspiels are competently run, I mean, you could have little Bobby is 12 years old run it if you want, and that probably wouldn't make much sense. And
doesn't
that's a great scene, actually. That's a really good scene. That is exactly the kind of operational fog of war type of thing we're talking about. And I really like Martin Sheen's this is in the movie, right? I really like Martin Sheen's performance and the dialogue that he's been given at that time, because he's not coming right out and saying that. He's saying, I cannot imagine what has become of General Stewart. You understand me, sir? And what he's saying is, I have no idea what's going on here, because General Stewart's supposed to come and tell me what's going on and where the enemy forces are and all that stuff, and he's nowhere to be found. He's off joyriding somewhere. So, and that's all undertone in that conversation between Lee and Heath in the movie. So I love that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, actually.
I haven't even seen that movie yet.
It's a good movie.
I want to see it. It's 4 hours long, but if I rent it, I got 48 hours to see the movie, and it's like, what?
I think you can buy it on Amazon for like $10 or something like that, the extended version, and then you can watch it whenever you want. I've watched it several times.
It's already twice, but it's okay. I guess you guys are busy. Talk to you soon.
Is everything okay?
I couldn't stop it. So I said, everybody's involved. We got the whole family there. Let's go, Gripe.
Sure. You're gonna, next family gathering, let's bust out a Kriegspiel.
Artie?
That'll be fun.
Oh yeah, it's your house next week, eh?
Well, that's true. It is at my place next week.
Do you want to do movies, war movies?
We should do that, actually, because I can talk for an hour about that.
Well, I'm glad you can talk, Artie, because I have to go to the can.
Okay, go to the can. It's all good. What is going on? But okay, I cannot highlight posts, unfortunately. So I would be curious. Hethwill says that Ancients is very challenging to Kriegspiel. Are we talking about as a player or as a referee or both? I'd be curious. I have never given any particular thought to doing Ancient Kriegspiel, but I see no reason why it can't work, and I think it would be interesting, especially as Kriegspiel is fundamentally, I think, an operational exercise, at least the ones I've been in. So, and I am really interested in that scale, in the operational scale, and there are also relatively few Ancients games at the operational scale. So, what was I going to start clipping? Yeah, not this. Oh, Napoleonic War and Peace, actually, which is that right there. So Atlantic Chase. Yeah, that might be. I really want to see that, actually. And things have been, let's say, hard to justify buying new games of late for about 4 or 5 different reasons, actually. So hopefully we'll be able to get that straightened out and behind us sometime soon.
What, you still want it for murder?
No, well, only in that one state. But Atlantic Chase is pretty new release from GMT. It's in one of their last couple.
For some reason, everybody's flipping out about that. Even Carl was very excited.
It looks really interesting. I gotta say, it looks really interesting. Everybody we both watch. I mean, the Player's Aid loves it, for example.
Who?
The Player's Aid, those guys.
No swearing.
With the shirts.
No swearing on air.
They loved it. Well, a bunch of other people have expressed admiration for what it's doing too. I really do want to see it. I was thinking about this during the week, actually. I think like there's a certain kind of grognard curmudgeonliness that likes to, maybe not necessarily in a serious way, but likes to complain about games that aren't like relatively conservative Hex Encounter war games, like the coin games. Those are newfangled. I don't know if those are even war games. But
you do that well.
I've been talking a lot. I actually haven't been talking that much all day. But it seems like for certain types of topics, particularly topics that are not land warfare, the Grognard community or Grognard community is more accepting of unconventional mechanisms in play. I was thinking of this in terms of naval and air games specifically. I think about the number of games of war games that you don't really hear anybody arguing. Is Down in Flames a war game?
Well, yeah.
Sure, but it's a card game, right? But nobody ever even has that discussion. Is Atlantic Storm a war game? Sure, nobody ever questions it. It's a card game, right? People do have that discussion about Up Front, which is a card game, but it's about soldiers with guns and hills and tanks and stuff like that. So it's like an unconventional subject. So I just feel like there's a little less of that curmudgeonliness applied to non-land warfare topics.
I can't even believe that's still around, that subject. It's over.
Well, I mean, I'm trying not to talk about it.
It's over. Here he goes. This Twilight Struggle, a war game. I swear to God, I'm going to ban you. I
believe we have answered this question already. And I know that because everyone has answered this question already. Let's play. Jan has a good one. He's hunting for a solitaire fog of war based system. That's a really interesting.
He's hunting for one?
Yeah, it's in the comments. Games that handle some. I'm trying to think of now an example of a strictly solitaire game that handles fog of war really well without necessarily. I mean.
Hey, ID.
Yeah, sometimes it's just that it's completely randomized, right? So you have Fog of War and B-17 Queen of the Skies, yeah, because you might not get intercepted by enemy fighters, right? But it's just randomized. It's not really Fog of War. It's not like there's things going on that you don't know about. The same thing would apply to things like the D-Day series from Decision or even Enemy Action Ardennes. Both John Butterfield designs, by the way. Fields of Fire, I think, is the same thing, though. I think is there Fog of War in it? Yeah, but it's kind of like simulated Fog of War because it's just randomized. But isn't that
what Fog of War is?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not. There's actual cause and effect behind the effect. But whereas in a random system, in B-17, for example, which is it's as simple as to see if you get intercepted, you roll, and if you roll, you got intercepted. If you didn't, you drop your bombs and you go home. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but that's the basic idea. Yeah. So you don't know, are there actually German fighters out here in the area that might intercept us? It's just built into the table. So Atlantic Chase does have a whole, which again, I would like to see, and I haven't seen yet, a whole book of solitaire scenarios. That is absolutely true. It does.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, Findle70 is also pointing out that GBACW. Well, this is true of GCACW too. There's a certain amount of Fog of War built into the mechanics. In that, you know exactly where all the enemy troops are, but you don't necessarily know who is going to get to act next. And that's true of both current incarnation of great battles of the American Civil War and all the incarnations of great campaigns of the American Civil War. Great Campaigns, on the other hand, has an technically optional, but in any large scenario, I would recommend playing with it, Fog of War rule, where it's very simple, actually. You have force display, and you keep your actual forces off map on the display, and you move the force markers around. And the enemy can't tell what's under a particular force marker unless you go run up and attack him, or they send cavalry to scout, and then the cavalry can then back off if they decide, this is an actual, division marching down the road rather than just a couple of pickets or something like that, or nobody. Sometimes the force markers will just be dummies, and that's a super common fog of war mechanism.
I think I can't see anything better than this.
So this is true too. This is the same mechanism that I was just talking about for great battles of the American Civil War, the current incarnation of which is a chit pull system. So you never know, right? You could have, you know, the Doubleday's division, right, on first day of Gettysburg, which is the most powerful formation on the field early in the battle. They could draw 3 chits in a row and act 3 times in a row and just roll the enemy up. You don't, know who's going to go first. So yeah, that's a fog of war. That's a fog of war mechanism. Yeah. It's also a command and control mechanism in that, particularly for American Civil War, is one of the things that you really want to model in American Civil War is the unpredictability of troops' behavior, right? You know, Longstreet does not attack when Lee wanted him to attack at Gettysburg, for example. And there are numerous examples in almost every Civil War battle. Rosecrans did not intend for a giant gaping anus to open up in the Union line, which then, you know, rolled up the whole almost the whole army. So the inability of troops to react on time, doing the right thing, is a thing that you want to model in Civil War games at the operational or the tactical level, I think. So, and chit pull is one of the tools in that box. Another is like a randomized activation system like GCACW uses, where you roll initiative. The turn consists of an indeterminate number of pulses. It's not what they're called. They're just called initiatives, I guess. And you roll, and whoever rolls higher gets to go, and then you roll again, and whoever goes higher gets to go, and you roll, and whoever goes higher gets to go. And I have seen it happen where the rebel player gets to go 10 times in a row, or the Union player gets to go 11 times in a row. So just because dice suck.
Well, no, but it's random, man. The random stuff that can happen in a battlefield is.
Yeah. So Hethwell points out that chit pull does not model unintended commander movements like Devil Dan Sickles at Gettysburg, for example. And he's right. It doesn't. However, on the other hand, the only successful modeling I have seen of that particular situation is in Last Chance for Victory, which is not a chit pull system, but it has a whole separate command and control mechanism going on, where the Confederate, if this particular event comes up, the Confederate player can write an order for a Union formation. So they can create an order that says Dan Sickles has to charge out to, out in front of the rest of the Union line. And then the Union player then has to abide by that order, because you have to abide by whatever written orders are there. So that's probably the best modeling of that particular situation I've seen. Everybody else kind of ignores it from the Gettysburg games that I've played. I mean, 3 Days of Gettysburg ignores it. You're never going to do that as a competent Union player in 3 Days of Gettysburg, for example. I'm pretty sure the Avalon Hill Gettysburg doesn't have anything in there about that. And it's Summer Storm, which is a Rick Barber design, actually.
Summer Storm, I don't know, because Carl gave me so many games. That's why I keep doing this. I'm keeping looking like, is it there? Is it there? But I can't see. I'm blind.
So Summer Storm is from Clash of Arms. And if you look at the box, it looks identical to the box style of the Civil War campaign series. But it is not part of the Civil War campaign series. It's its own thing that I think is the only game that... I think it's the only game in that series. I guess it's not a series then. Actually kind of tempted. Local store actually has a copy of Summer Storm, and I'm actually kind of tempted to go get it.
Doesn't ASL have a rule for stupidity?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
There's probably a rule for drunk commanders, actually.
I'm sure, especially well, the Japanese one, the sake thing you were telling me, no?
Well, that's really just a re-rolled shit, though. That's really all that is.
It's man. I'm still thinking about Kriegspiel. I had no idea. I didn't know that was. I thought Kriegspiel was an old Avalon Hill game, but something that the Prussians created, right? Kriegspiel.
So the Avalon Hill game does not resemble the Prussian Kriegspiel in even the vaguest possible way. It is its own thing. It's an incredibly simple war game system that I have heard literally no positive views on whatsoever. It doesn't look good. It doesn't play good. It doesn't do anything except sit on a shelf. And for many years, it was like traditional at the Origins auction when they had an auction. Lots of story we won't get to today.
There was a ton of them.
They would always save a copy of Kriegspiel for the very last item to auction off on Sunday morning, sometimes actually.
But if that's not you're telling me it's a crappy game.
It's a crappy game. Yeah.
So why would they wait for the last?
I have no idea how that tradition arose, to be completely honest. And the Origins doesn't have a game auction anymore.
Yeah,
Short version. There's a couple reasons why. One is is Ohio law, which just sucks on this topic, and the other is that at 1 year, I think somebody broke into the room and stole all the laptops and all the cash. So, and that kind of put the kibosh on those people willing to run the thing.
Why are there people like this on Earth? What did they?
I have no idea.
Did they take at least a couple of games? For God's sakes.
I doubt it. I mean, if you got 10 grand in cash sitting around, small untraceable bills, why bother with the games? You know.
Now, Findle70 said, Dan Origins. Hey, listen, Findle, 50,000 people there. I don't think you're going to see me there.
Well, so this year, I am reasonably sure we're not. So it's been rescheduled to September. I am reasonably sure you're not going to see 50,000 people at Origins this year.
You think it's going to be a bust?
I think it's going to be way smaller than previous years for a variety of reasons. One, I mean, we don't know what the COVID situation is going to look like in September. It's only a few months away. And they may throttle attendance too. I don't know. I mean, I love Origins. I've been going to Origins until last year.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a few times you say that. I don't understand why you love Origins.
It's not really for the war games, to be honest, because while there's wargaming there, it's a really small percentage of this activity at Origins is wargaming at this point. But there's 50,000 people there, right? So a small percentage of 50,000 people can still be like 20 or 30 people. So there's more war games than people think. But generally speaking, as somebody that has local war game opponents and a local war game community, I go to Origins and do other stuff. Role-playing games, or every once in a while, I'll even play a miniatures game.
We're gonna have to talk about cons in another show.
We can do that.
But 50,000 people listen. Artie, 50. Like, are you kidding? Imagine. Look, I was gonna say something.
Imagine the dealer's room.
No, imagine if someone walks in there and goes bang bang with a gun, and there's 50,000 people.
Well, there's at least 10,000 of them would crap their pants, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, and I'd say a good 1,000 would die.
Well,
get run over.
We all hope that kind of thing. At any big event, that could have. Honestly, just being realistic about it, there was some kind of country music concert in Las Vegas? Some crazy guy ran in with a gun.
I saw. Yeah.
Shot 150 people. I don't know.
Is that true?
Yeah, that actually happened in some country music concert I would have thought the crazy guy with a gun would probably just gone into a country music concert and they gotten a bunch of hugs or something. But that's another thing. As John Longshore pulls out.
Bloody hell.
But in any case, so my first Origins was Origins in 1995, which was in Philadelphia. And I'd been going every year since, and I'd missed last year because it was canceled, and I'd missed one other year because I had a back problem that year and could not physically walk around in the convention center, so I just couldn't go. But yeah, I'll totally be there this year. At least part of the time. I don't know exactly how it's going to work out yet.
What it's 5 hours from here to Baltimore for me. 6, whatever.
Origins is in Columbus, Ohio.
See, I don't even know where the hell it is.
So it is about a $18 Uber downtown.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be $18 for me.
Well, no, you'd have to. I mean, I don't know what kind of drive it would be to.
It's going to be a no drive because the states are close to us. But anyways, John Longshore, it's funny, man. You see, John, I don't have that American mentality, the automatic thing that comes out. And I remember I was at WBC and I was talking with, or I was at the.
It's only a 4-hour drive for you.
Huh?
It's like a 4.5. Oh no, never mind. That's a flight. It's a 12-hour drive for you. Forget it.
No, I've been there. Hardy, yeah. If you interrupt me, I don't even know what I'm talking about. What am I talking about?
I don't know. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, John Longshore, where he said, where I said, what happens if a shooter goes bang, 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 bang? He says, well, 10,000 people would pull out their guns.
Well, I don't think there's not plenty of those people in Ohio.
But I keep forgetting that because I was talking with Joe Stedman. I love Joe Stedman.
Recently?
No, 2 years ago.
Okay.
You see? Eh? You see?
Yeah.
Father War, man.
That was my mom, though. So.
Oh, scusi.
So it's okay. It's okay.
So
I'll call her in 10 minutes.
I'm talking with Joe Stedman. And I said, man, if China invades the States, what the hell is going to happen with the amount of people? Because, we're drunk. We're doing this. And he just says, we got the biggest army in the world, man. 350 million people. They're all armed. And he said, let him come. And it's true, man.
That's what I guarantee that's what the Chinese think.
Oh, absolutely. What? That is common sense.
Or whoever, right? Or the British.
Common sense. And that is the strongest deterrent for me to say, oh, no. Because you can see little Jimmy, 6 years old, a super shot. Anyways, I guess we were talking about maps.
Well, we talked about. I actually did it was kind of buried in the middle of a bunch of random talk, but the point about the mathematical difference, the topological differences between hex maps and point-to-point maps and area maps is they look very different. They're in fact not necessarily that different. So I don't know what the numbers are on this.
Purple Norseman, I don't believe you. You ever hear of Charlton Heston?
He might be.
God. Hey, look, man. You know what? If I was in the States, I'd have a gun.
ID Jester asked about Buckeye Game Fest. I'm fairly sure that Buckeye Game Fest is canceled. Am I remembering that correctly? No, I'm not sure. Yes, Buckeye Game Fest has canceled for 2021. It is going to be held in April 2022. And yes, there will be a war room. It is already on the schedule.
So when's Buckeye?
April 7th through the 10th. Then the war room opens on the 4th. So the way it works is it's a board game convention. It's a 4-day board game convention, Thursday through Sunday, right? But then the war room opens on Monday, nothing else going on, and the war room people can set their stuff up and play all week. So it's a pretty good venue to play. I mean, there's people playing little pickup stuff too, obviously, but
is that like that's a serious war gaming, big monster gaming convention, the Buckeye, right?
Well, yeah, but in that there's like that's going on, but there's a lot of casual game and just people playing regular, Settlers of Catan in the other room too.
Okay, so it's a con. It's a con.
Yeah, and I think last time, which was 2019, I think it drew about 300 or 400 people total. So it's good sized. It doesn't feel empty by any means. And I'll tell you something else too. If there's in that war room, there can be like 16 people in that war room playing war games, and it feels like there's a ton going on. Even though you just look at the list and say there's only 16 people in here, it doesn't really seem like it's this hopping thing. But at the same time, you get like 3 tables of monster games and somebody playing Battles of the American Revolution over here.
Yeah, that's hopping in a different way, man. It's hopping.
Yeah.
But you seem to really enjoy that one, man.
I do. But it's also here, it's also right here in town. So it's not like I have to, again, it's, 18-minute Uber. It's actually, it's actually at the Hyatt, which is one of the connected hotels to the Columbus Convention Center, which is where Origins is held. So if you've been to Origins, the Buckeye Game Fest is held in one of the rooms in the Hyatt that normally hosts like role-playing games at Origins.
If between, it's ridiculous. Between Buckeye and Origins, what are you saying? Origins, obviously, yes, of course.
Yeah, I'd say Origins. I mean, well, here's why. I can go. So the difference is in breadth of events,
right?
For me, right? And this is just where I'm coming from. Again, I have plenty of wargaming happening locally, so I don't have to worry about I want to play a war game this year if I don't play. So I'll play stuff like D&D or whatever that I don't normally get to do. That's not the kind of thing that happens at Buckeye Game Fest. So I'd prefer to go to both. That'd be great. But at the same time, if it's one or the other, I would choose Origins. Also, shopping. There are vendors at Buckeye Game Fest. Enterprise Games typically comes to Buckeye Game Fest with a very nice selection of GMT products and some other stuff too. But at Origins, you have RPG vendors and Enterprise Games is there with, again, a huge selection of GMT stuff. You have Decision Games, which stocks not only their stuff, but some other companies' stuff as well. Sometimes Cool Stuff brings war games, and it's great when they do. But
and how are the prices? The prices, the games, the deals you can get.
The deals at conventions are not what they used to be.
I thought there was going to be deals, man.
So it depends. If you, I will personally vouch for, if you just go browse the Decision Games booth and say, you look at the price list, you're going to see them at retail price. Yeah. But then they'll have a little card up there that says if you spend $100, you get 10% off. If you spend $200, you get 20% off. And I can personally vouch for the fact that you can dicker with Doc. So if you say, Doc, how about if I buy this $500 package of games? What, are you give me a big discount? Yes, he absolutely did. So
good, man. Good.
So yeah, you can do that. Enterprise Games are a bit less than Enterprise Games, which is a retailer out of Indiana. They do have a website, enterprisegames.com. And they'll have their their regular prices are a bit discounted from the MSRP of GMT stuff. And they're like the official rep of GMT at Origins, by the way.
Well, our time is up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep, it is.
And that's what it is.
Yes. So Fendel is right about Cool Stuff, but they haven't brought war games for the last 2 or 3 years.
They have not?
They have not.
That's a Tom Vassell problem.
That's okay. They don't have much in the way of, they don't have much in the way of war games in stock. That's not
the
GMT anyway.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I think most of their business is collectible cards. Anyway.
All right. Thanks, people, for being on. And Artie, thanks. We're going to see you at your house next week. And
my place next week. We'll see what we're talking about. It might be solitaire games. It might be cons. We might talk about cons.
Well, what about movies?
Or we could fit that in whenever, right? Next time we're like, it's 2 minutes to go. What's our topic? Movies. War movies. We'll talk about war movies.
Okay, thanks, Artie.
All right,
people,
everybody have a great night.
Have a great night.